In Great Neck, sometimes you have sounds, and that could be the sound of your commute, it can be the sound of children playing, or even the birds that nature brings to you. But if you listen closely, one of the sounds you'll probably hear is Steve Gluzband's trumpet and the many notes he's played in his 20-year career. Today on Access Spotlight, we meet him, hear him play, and go over the 400, okay, maybe not all 400 albums, but talk about 400 albums that he's appeared on and to see what else is to come. Hi, Steve.
How you doing?
I'm okay. I'm excited. We got a taste or a sample of your albums here, but before we even get into this, I want to know, how did it all start?
How did it all start?
Yeah, when did you know music was for you?
Well, when I was in the 5th grade, the Beatles hit.
Okay.
And so my sister wanted to play the guitar. And my mother said to me, "You want to play the guitar?" And I'm, I don't know about the guitar. She pulls out a little card from the studio. She says, "Well, they also teach," and one of them was the accordion. So I said, "Oh, the accordion." Mm-hmm. There used to be a show on TV, Ted Mack's Original Amateur Hour. And it was kind of like America's Got Talent. And every week there was a kid playing the accordion. Or sometimes they'd put mittens on and play the accordion. And it just looked like a magic act to me. So I said, "I'll play the accordion." And so I started playing the accordion. And within a year, I was taking it to school and getting on the bus and playing for the old ladies and making money. And maybe $35 or something like that. But today's money, that would be $100. Not bad for 5th grade.
Yeah.
And then my friends and I, we all started getting into jazz around the 7th grade. And then I realized I couldn't get it on the accordion. Some people could do it, but I couldn't.
Okay. So the accordion was the instrument of choice back in the day. This is interesting.
Well, the accordion was still popular, and then they all went to electric accordions, the Quartervox they called it. And I didn't like that idea. I wanted the squeeze box. So I just started losing interest in the accordion. Also, I got tired of playing for the grandmothers. I wanted to play for the granddaughters instead, and I switched to the trumpet.
Okay. And how did the trumpet change or relate to what you did on the accordion, if at all?
Well, on accordion, I played mostly what we call today ethnic specialties. Okay. So I come from Boston. We were playing Irish, Italian, and Jewish music on the accordion. Mm-hmm. And on trumpet, I was playing mostly jazz and rock and Latin.
Did you know early on what type of music you wanted to play on the trumpet, or was that something you kind of experimented and something just fit?
In the late 60s, the boogaloo was very popular. Okay. And my sister and I had a little band, which you might call jazz boogaloo. Mm-hmm. So that was sort of my first taste of quasi-Latin music. How
did you get from Boston to our wonderful town of Great Neck?
Well, when I saw Celia Cruz and Johnny Pacheco playing in Boston.
Okay.
I was in the house band of the Pabon Brothers. Uh-huh. And when Celia and Johnny came to town was when they first hit with the Kimbara Kimbara Kumba Kimbamba Kimbara. And it was just the most amazing music I ever heard. I said, I was too young for the American swing era, but these guys are having their swing era right now, and I don't want to miss it. So I knew I was going to have to move to New York if I wanted to be serious about playing Latin music.
What was it like to hear the music, to learn the music, to participate with the bands?
Well, at the beginning, it was hard because in those days, especially in Boston, it was strictly Puerto Ricans. Mm-hmm. There weren't even any Dominicans. It was absolutely just all Puerto Ricans. Mm-hmm. And my family came here from Cuba, and even that doesn't really count. So it was a strictly Puerto Rican scene, and I was having trouble breaking into it. And there are a couple of people that sort of gave me a break. One of them was Tito Gomez, who sang with Barreto on his big hit Guararé, and also another singer in Boston, Paquito de Jesus, who was also a big proponent of mine. He kept telling them, he's going to get it, he can hear it, give him a minute. And sure enough, I became probably the first call trumpet player in Boston, but I realized could only go so far with it. I had to move here.
And you moved here, you started playing, and everything took off.
I got a job the first afternoon. I went to Johnny Cologne's music school, East Harlem Music School. They're having a little rehearsal. I play a few notes, and the guy running the ensemble, he goes, "You don't want to be at the school. You need a job." And he put me on a job for that Saturday night. And on the job was Steve Teray, the trombone player you see on Saturday Night Live.
Huh.
Yeah. And I started just working immediately.
What was the song that took you to the next level with players or musicians in the Latin jazz space? Or what was it about your sound that really was like, this is the guy we need on every album? Because you've done 400 albums, Grammys.
Well, a lot of people, they want to compare me to Chocolate, the famous Cuban trouble player, but actually that's not really true. I sound more like a cat, El Negro Ival, who came up with the Cachao famous jam session record in late 50s, and I sound more like him. And then in the Fania era, which is my generation, I very much copied Luis Perico Ortiz, who's and I still kind of sound like him when I play Latin, which is Johnny Pacheco's thing.
You've also toured.
I played 27 countries.
Tell me what places?
Well, we played all over Europe. Played in France, England, Scotland, Germany, Belgium, the Netherlands, Budapest, all over Italy, Switzerland, a whole bunch of Switzerland. Played in Andorra. People go, "Do you mean there really is an Andorra?" I thought it was just on the picture in the book. Yeah, there's really an Andorra.
Huh.
And all over South America and Caribbean. I have never played, however, in the Far East. I've never been on that side.
Well, I need someone to invite our friend here to the Far East. Give him a little, we'll get your information up there.
There's a lot of Latin music playing in China now.
Really?
They go over to China a lot. I know a lot of bands that go over there. I would do that.
You would do that? Do you think you would add some Asian influence to what you play, or you think authenticity?
Probably not.
And you worked with some of the greats. So obviously you mentioned Celia. I feel like there's a Miles Davis or...
Well, we played opposite Miles a couple of times.
Really? What was that like?
Miles had a reputation that he doesn't talk to anybody.
All right.
He saw Barretto. He came running over to him and wanted to talk to him. And we were just like, everybody's jaw hit the floor. Barretto goes, "That guy doesn't talk to anybody." He couldn't believe it. And Miles always said, "Oh, I don't like to look backwards. I only like to look forward." But he remembered everything from 1947 when him and Barretto were hanging out at Minton's after the war, and when Dizzy and Bird were inventing the music with Thelonious Monk. And they were there 6 nights a week. And he says Miles remembered every single detail.
And Minton's down in Harlem on 116.
It's the same location.
Yeah, same location.
116, yeah.
I've been, but I haven't caught the magic that I'm sure you've caught.
It's not the same anymore. It was a little bit more the same about 10 years ago when it was just sort of a decayed little hole-in-the-wall bar, but that still had more of the vibe of the original Minton's. Now it's very much the new Harlem.
So let's talk about that. Let's talk about music and how much it's changed when you started. I mean, is jazz and Latin jazz, are the notes still the same? Is the vibe, like, what has changed or stayed the same? Like, someone like me, and don't be mad, sounds like, like music, it sounds beautiful, and jazz and Latin sounds, but what is it that I'm missing that your ear hears or doesn't hear?
I don't know. I mean, Latin music tends to be very cyclical. So, like, every so often it sort of goes back and does the other thing again, and then it develops, and then it'll go back, and it's always bringing back the old things, son montuno and mambo and like that. It never really goes away, or it goes away for a minute, then it comes back.
So what's back now?
Right now, there's a big revival of what they call salsa dura.
Okay.
And that's more like the Latin music that I came up with. Because for the last 10 years before that, we had that salsa mantica.
Okay.
Which is more like, romantic. It's all about the singer and... But when you do the salsa dura, or the salsa that I grew up with, it was more about the band. It wasn't all about the singer. We just did a show, not last Saturday, but the Saturday before. It was a tribute to Barretto and we did it on 106th Street. And he had most of the guys from the band were there, and it was unbelievable. And we were playing all the old tunes. It was great.
What does it feel like when you're on stage performing?
I always like to play. I mean, it's easy to play on stage because you're sort of hiding behind the horn. So it's not quite the same as just being up there by yourself. And also, when you have a band, then you all sort of rest on each other too. So you know, it's because I used to be a poet, but just getting up there and reciting poetry is not something I can do. No way. No way. But play with a band, that's a different story.
I don't know, but you're telling me it's poetry to my ears.
It's different. When poetry, you're bearing your soul. It's much rougher than just playing music. When I write a poem, you know, if I wrote you something, I'd hand it to you and I'd have to leave the room while you read it. I couldn't sit there and watch you read it.
What about when you're writing music?
When I'm writing music, I'm writing it for everybody to hear, and then I do want everybody to see it. Sometimes, what happens with me, the difference between me and people that really write a lot of music is they get up and do it every day. At 5 a.m., start writing music. I get up every day and play the trumpet, but I don't always write music. But every once in a while, when the spirit moves me, I can write 2 or 3 songs in one day. But it doesn't always happen. But whenever I'm in the mood, I go, oh, it's music time, it's composing time, and then I start doing it.
And talking about composing, you've composed something that hasn't ever been done before, right? You've written a book.
It's actually transcriptions, but in jazz, they have a lot of transcription books where you write out the guy's solo and the kids can practice it. But in Latin music, they never had such a book. There were a lot of books about Latin music, about the history of Cuban and Puerto Rican music, this and that. But it wasn't just trumpet solos written out. And not only that, this is only New York trumpet players. So they may be Cubans or Dominicans or whatever, but these are only from New York records. So nobody's ever done this before.
What compelled you to put this together?
I'll tell you what compelled me to do it, because you still hear these records in the clubs, but nobody remembers who the sidemen are, because on the records, a lot of them, especially Fania records, don't give credits. So you see the singer and the band leader, and that's about it. And even though everybody knows these trumpet players, they don't necessarily know who they are. So I put the solos in, and then we wrote little biographies about them.
Little biographies about each person.
Yeah.
And it had to have taken a lot to find, you know, who did what. How did you do that?
That was the hard part. Writing out the music took me about 5 months. But the book itself took us almost 2 years to do all the research and the writing and editing of the text. Putting out a book is a lot harder than a record.
Really?
If you have enough money, you can get a record out in 3 weeks.
In 3 weeks?
Yeah, absolutely. As long as you have enough money, you can just get the thing done. But a book is a really slow process.
Okay. So let's talk about your records in a second, because you've put out some of your own music. But you've appeared on, give me the number.
It's around 400, something like that.
Something like that. Yeah. I bet it's more.
I got a Grammy Award with Celia Cruz. I went double platinum with the Talking Heads. And I've been on about 10 other albums that were nominated for Grammys. Even my records have been in Grammy categories.
And your most recent record
was in 5 Grammy categories, and as was my first one I produced. Both of these made 5 categories, including the album cover.
Hello. And you want to talk about the album cover
love the album cover.
Let's grab that. Go ahead. You grab that.
Love the album cover. This is 106th Street, and there used to be a club here called Monique's. It's not there anymore. I think it's turning into some kind of art gallery. And we saw the hydrant with the kids splashing around. We said, oh, that's great. But I needed the Puerto Rican flag. So I was playing the Puerto Rican Day Parade with Puente Jr., and I was just taking pictures trying to find the flag. When I saw the girl, I said, there's my flag.
But why this use of the flag? and this girl?
Well, this record is the Puerto Rican one. The first one was more Cuban.
Okay.
So this one we have bomba and plena, which are Puerto Rican rhythms, and that and we photoshopped her in, and you see it's like she's standing on the outside looking in.
Yes.
The perpetual outsider. That's me. I'm the little girl.
And why do you feel like the outsider and the perpetual outsider looking in?
I don't know. When I go to a lot of places that I'm very, very well received, but even still, what can I say? I had to battle my way in. That's for sure. It wasn't easy.
Well, I think you battled quite well, because 400 albums, and this is not even a percentage of what you have and what's home.
Well, the trouble is most of the ones in the last 20 years are CDs. It's been a while before records came back. I'm just really glad records came back.
Yeah, I'm still on vinyl, so.
Yeah, vinyl is my thing. I adore vinyl.
Let's talk about your career. I believe you've done some incredible pieces of work. I've heard your album. What phase are you in now in your career? Is it just beginning? Is it getting sweeter? Is it almost about to be like, I'm ready to put this seat down? And
well, I remember what my boss Barretto used to say. We would ask him to say, Ray, which is your favorite record? He says, the next one. That's the way you got to look at it. I'm certainly playing better than I ever have, so whatever I'm doing next will be the best I've sounded ever. Yeah, I mean, you're smiling, but I'm very serious about it.
no,
Yeah. And also, now that I'm not doing school anymore, just retired a couple of months ago from teaching in the Bronx, now I have more time I feel like I'm picking up again where I left off. It's not like I ever stopped playing. It's just brutal when you come home at 2 in the morning and get up at 5. So now I don't have to worry about that anymore.
Now that you have time, what is the sound that your music is creating? Are you focused more on the Puerto Rican or Cuban music, or do you just find yourself moving to other genres because you have this time right now?
Well, I mean, I'm trying to branch out, see if I can do more recording and Broadway show and something like that. But what's happening is I'm just playing a ton of Latin music, and it sort of was where I came in. So I'm really happy about it.
And speaking of Latin music, you have played with Mark Anthony as well.
At the Garden.
At the Garden. You've also played with...
Actually, one time at the Garden, it was when Mark Anthony was doing that show Cake Man. So Paul Simon was involved in that concert, and they did one number was just 5-piece band, and I was the only horn. So I was the only horn doing the Paul Simon bit. So that was kind of cool. Now,
in addition to performing with the greats, you've done some Nickelodeon television stuff.
Blues Clues.
Blues Clues.
I'm the trumpet player of Blues Clues.
That's a big deal.
Only there's 2 guys. There was Steve and Joe. I'm on the ones with Joe, the newer ones.
How do you play a Blues Clues?
Well, my boy J. Walter Hawks writes a lot of cartoon shows. He does right now. He's doing a Peg Plus Cat for PBS. I did a couple of Peg Plus Cats. I did the first one and the third one, I think. And at that time he was doing Blues Clues and also Wonder Pets, which they won a ton of awards for Wonder Pets. But Wonder Pets didn't use the trumpet, but Blues Clues certainly did. And so he would write little bits and pieces to fit in the show. Like say they might point and say, it's the number 5. You can see the 5, and you'd hear the trumpets, pa-da-da-da, something like that. We didn't do a lot of, jamming until the very last one. There was extended credits roll at the end, and we just kind of jammed some Dixieland blues at the end.
Tell me about jam sessions. It's for our audience who doesn't know what that is. I'm guessing you're getting down, but I feel like you have an end to it that I may not know.
Well, you were asking me before about the difference between playing music, learning music today and back in the day. Well, today it's kind of antiseptic because it's all academic. I don't like academic jazz so much. But in my day, there was still a lot of jam sessions where you go and could jam with the old timers. That's where you learn something.
Let me ask you this. Will you do a jam session here one day on one of our other shows?
I would love to bring Hot House in here and we'll do a whole episode, yeah.
All right, guys, stay tuned for that. It's coming. It's coming. The Hot House jazz performance.
That'd be
Get
great.
down.
That would be
Okay, I'm gonna
great.
be ready. Can I play an instrument like a triangle? I'm serious though.
We should get you on claves.
I can do that. I don't know if my mouth can do that.
Well, we'll get you the real claves.
It don't do that.
Or, of course, we do some boogaloo and we'll get you a tambourine.
Well, we're getting ready to wind down. So before we do anything, what can we expect from you within the next year?
That's a good question. I want to book more jobs for Hot House because, like I say, I'm getting very busy just playing for other people again, but there's not enough Hot House. We play at the FB Lounge on 106th Street, and we play sometimes up in at the Bean Runner, and many of the places we were playing closed. So that's why it's all. We used to play the Garage down the Village, and a bunch of other places that are either closed or are not using like Latin jazz anymore. So, see what I can do. That's my goal in the next year. Also, sometimes we play rock clubs.
Rock clubs.
And the kids adore it. We played one in Brooklyn. It's everybody with the spiked hair and the piercings and everything else. We played opposite 7 punk bands, and everybody said they liked us the best. And the cool part about it is when you play a rock club, you use their backline, their amplifiers and stuff, so we were just as loud as everybody else. And it works for me.
You're wild, Steve, and I like it. Where can people get in touch with you?
Ooh, that's a good question. My website is Gluzband, Gluzband, at gluzband.net.
Okay.
That's one way to get in touch with me. And certainly I can tell you how to find the recordings or the book. We have to press more books. We've actually sold almost all of them. But there's a music store in Manhattan that has them. Landris Brass, he's still got a few.
Okay.
But we definitely need to press more. We've run out.
And you can find the album on your website or on Amazon?
You can get it on iTunes, on CD Baby,
Okay.
all that stuff. Yeah.
All right. And do you want to show our audience some of your albums and what you've done in each one
Wow.
before we get out of here?
I like to show this one, the Haitian record here, Mini All-Stars. This is a 3-record set, tribute to Nemours, who was the father of Compas. And this is actually Gold Leaf, I believe.
Gold Leaf.
Yeah, I
I'm going to
think
hold
so.
this close to my heart. And what's really exciting about this is, for those who don't know, I'm of Haitian descent. My parents are Haitian, so I grew up with this music. So I'm excited to know someone who contributed
we
to
did
my...
a whole bunch of Mini All-Stars. I was one of the Mini All-Stars. I did like 13 Mini All-Star records, and then I did a couple with Skasha and Tabu Combo.
Hey.
Yeah.
And what else do we have?
And here's my boss, Ray Barretto. I was with him for 20 years. And I was actually, his last record, which I do not have here because it's a CD, not not vinyls, Soy Dichoso. And that was, I believe, the very last Fania record. So that's kind of special because I sort of came here to play for Fania. So I played with Johnny Pacheco 10 years, but it was past Johnny's recording days. But Barretto, I did his last 3 records, and I think that was the very last Fania record. So that's kind of cool.
And in this album,
There's Ray Ramos, Salsa Tracks.
you're actually on it.
That's the top of the #1 train up at Van Cortlandt Park. I knew Ray Ramos from this band, Saoko. That's the first name band I played with in New York, Saoko. And they called me up one time. They said, what are you doing tonight? I said, no, nothing. He said, okay, Avenue B and 11th Street, St. Bridget's. I said, okay. So I get down there, and the guy says to me, who are you playing with? So what do you mean? He says, well, it's 2 bands, a cumbia band, that's the Colombian music, and the Saoko. I said, oh, it can't be Saoko. That's like a big deal band. I don't know, I guess the cumbia band. The band gets there, they go, no, you're playing with Saoko. I said, oh. So one of the singers from Saoko was Henry Fiol, but that was before my time, and then Ray Ramos, that's in my time, and they were both with Saoko, and then I ended up playing with Ray and Henry after that.
Very nice. Now, you have your trumpet here,
I do have a trumpet here.
and there's no pressure, but if we had to play or do a jam session to rock us out of this segment, are you up for the challenge?
Oh, I don't know.
Are you
I
up?
could play songs some of the songs I learned a long time ago. Like, remember, this guy used to play some trumpet on the radio. As the work song written by Nat Adderley, but you've probably heard Herb Alpert play it on the radio.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, thank you so much for being here and sharing your story with us. And you'll be back to perform.
Yeah, I definitely
with
want
the
to bring
band.
Hot House in. That'd
So
be
Hot
great.
House is coming.
That'd be great.
Hot House is coming. I'm that hot that I can't say it. See? And we know where to find you. And you are just beginning, from what I gather, even with 400 albums. All right, guys, thank you for watching. If you have any questions or comments, you know the routine. Hit us up on social media. It should be on the screen. Or you can email us at info@pdatv.org. I'm Karleen Leveille. I'll catch you next time. Bye.